Why conservatives should cross over and vote in the upcoming Democrat primary to replace David Cicilline in Rhode Island's congressional district number 1. Look, do you agree with me that Rhode Island needs new representation from our congressional delegation in Washington, D.C.? I mean, there's no question that over the last few decades, whether it's Sheldon Whitehouse or Jack Reed, or it was David Cicilline, or it was Jim Langevin, or now it's Seth Magaziner, that Rhode Island's delegation has voted almost 100% of the time with Joe Biden, with the woke, liberal, progressive leftists who lead their party, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and now whatever the new guy is leading the minority Democrats in the House. And it's not reflective of our values. Rhode Islanders have a deep cultural, ethnic, religious, moral values. And our representation in Congress has not been representative of the values that you and I share. So we need new representation in Congress. And as you know, there's a primary coming up on September 5th. Looks like there's going to be both a Republican and Democratic primary. But look, this district, this first congressional district in Rhode Island is a plus, I don't know, some people say it's as high as a plus 29 district, which means there's 29% more registered or, Democrats than there are Republicans, and Democrats almost always win by, 10, 20, 30 points, probably 20, 30 points in that district. So this seat is definitely going to a Democrat. The question is it going to be another progressive, liberal, woke Democrat who doesn't share your values? Or could it be one of the few Democrats in this primary? And remember, right now, there are over 20 have announced candidacy. So, or is it going to be one of the more moderates, one of the Democrats who actually shares some of our values? Somebody who has a real world approach versus somebody who lives in the liberal never land of make believe that we talk about so often. We're going to get into some of that just in a second. We need representation who will help strengthen our pursuit of happiness and prosperity, who will respect and preserve our constitutional and God-given rights rather than continually voting and advocating for policies that infringe on those rights, and someone who represents the core traditional values and heritage that so many of us in Rhode Island share. Excuse me. So today our center, and here's our media release. Today our center put out we launched our campaign, why conservatives should cross over and vote in the primary. And it's a public awareness campaign, and you can help with this. We got a month to spread the word. By August 6th, voters should check whether they're eligible to vote in Congressional District 1 generally, and then they should check to see if they're eligible to vote in the Democratic primary. The theory being, if enough conservatives vote for a moderate candidate in this primary, the moderate candidate could win the primary in the Democrat side and obviously will go on to win in the general election in November. And with 20 candidates splitting the vote, they all may not get the signatures. That could be something in the teens in the end. We could end up with on the primary ballot, but still with over a dozen candidates splitting the 35,000 votes expected, a few thousand crossover voters clearly could make a difference. The winner could emerge with as little as 7,000 or 8,000 votes. So 2,000 or 3,000 crossover voters, along with a few thousand votes a moderate might normally get, we could actually see a change of representation in DC. Now, look, this is a little bit of a thorny area for our center. Not, we don't normally get involved in elections, but as long as we're okay to encourage you to vote, we're okay to advise you of your rights when it comes to vote, as long as we don't endorse a candidate any particular candidate or party. So this is what we're doing. This is what our campaign is all about. So let me tell you a little bit about what was in our media release and what you can do to spread the word. You should spread it for the next month. You have until August 6th to check or change your eligibility, your voter eligibility status, so that you're able to vote in that district. First of all, you have to be eligible. You have to be a U.S. citizen. You have to live in Congressional District 1. Now, there's a step-by-step guide on our website that'll take you through all this. I'll show you the website in just a second. But I'm just gonna summarize it. So you can check to see which voting district, if you're in Congressional District 1 or not. Most of you probably know already. It's pretty much the eastern half of Providence and all of East Bay, right? And up into, and I think that includes all points north of Providence along 95, Pawtucket, Central Falls or whatnot, and pretty much East Providence and all East Bay, right? I think that's pretty much Congressional District 1. But still, then you got to check to see if you're eligible to vote in the Democrat primary. If you're registered as a Democrat or you're registered as unaffiliated, you can vote in the Democrat primary. If you're registered as a Republican and you want to vote in the Democratic primary, you have until August 6th to change your affiliation to unaffiliated. That makes you eligible to vote in either primary. So just to summarize it, if you're a registered Republican or Democrat, you can only vote in that party's primary. You don't have an additional option. If you're registered as unaffiliated, you could vote in either primary when it comes to that election. Now, we're not exactly sure when early voting is going to begin, but for the next month, we're encouraging everybody to check their voter registration status, confirm they're in Congressional District 1, and then if you want to vote in that primary, make sure you're either registered, basically just make sure you're registered as unaffiliated. But we go through the whole guide on that. Now, look, and there's another part to, well, I'll get to that in a second as well. It's your patriotic duty to vote. You don't always you can be strategic about it, right? You don't, on our website, let me share this with you. On our website, which is rifreedom.org/crossover, by the way, and you can see it up here in the URL. Look at this little diddly we put on there. A vote is not a Valentine. You aren't confessing your love for a candidate. It's a chess move for the kind of world you want to live in. All right. It's your patriotic duty to vote. There is nothing illegal, immoral, or illicit about you crossing over and voting in a primary you wouldn't normally vote in. It's your right to do so. So why not be strategic? Why not use your we're trying to raise awareness and let you know that you have full voting rights when it comes to this. You can do this. And if enough of us do this, and we got our whole coalition, by the way, supporting this, if enough of us do this, we can change the outcome of that Democrat primary election, and we can change the outcome of what kind of representation we have in Washington, D.C. Wouldn't it be nice to have somebody who shares at least some of our core traditional values? I think that would be terrific. So go to rifreedom.org/crossover and check out the voter eligibility guide, which I'll show you right here. Just give you a quick look at it so you can see it. But here it is with screenshots. We want to thank our friend Mike Dinezzo. You have until August 6th. It just takes you with screenshots, with instructions, step by step, on how you can check and or change your voter status and your eligibility on that. All right, why is this important? This is important, I think, for a second reason as well. Again, it's time well, let me first say this. It's time conservatives use their voting power at the ballot box. And you don't have to wait to vote for a conservative candidate in Republican primary in order to do that. We're giving you an option to have your vote count in the Democrat primary. And then if you want, right after you vote in that Democrat primary, you can you can change your affiliation back to Republican or back to unaffiliated or back to Democrat or whatever you want to do. You can change your voter affiliation right after. So it's a temporary thing. You make sure you're eligible to vote in the September 5th primary. You got to do it by August 6th. And then right after you vote, you can switch it back to where it was. All right. But not just check your eligibility, but make sure you get out and vote in that primary if you are eligible. That'll be more part of our August campaign to get out the vote push. But right now it's check your eligibility. Now, the Democrats did this. Do you remember the Democrats did this in 2006? In the Republican U.S. Senate primary, you had incumbent liberal Republican Link Chafee, who would later become an independent and later would become a Democrat. But at the time, he was a liberal, but he was an incumbent. Steve Laffey, the former mayor of Cranston, definitely a conservative, definitely challenged him in the primary. Democrats were concerned that Rhode Island would send a conservative senator to Washington, D.C. So they initiated a large crossover voting campaign, and it worked. Now, Democrats follow orders from their masters. Republicans were a little bit more independent-minded thinking, so I've got to really convince you to do this. But Democrats followed their orders. They crossed over, and Lincoln Chafee defeated Steve Laffey in that primary. So it's time for us to do the same. It's time for us to ensure that another woke, progressive, liberal, who doesn't understand, has no sense of reality, doesn't get sent to Washington, D.C. I can't mention any names, but again, do your own research. Go to our website. There are places you can go. Our website provides you a link to one of our coalition partners who handicapped a lot of those candidates, which ones might be worthy of your crossover vote, but that's a whole nother story. Democrats did this, or liberals did this in 2006 for the U.S. Senate. And the Republican side, it's time for conservatives to do this in the Democrat primary for the United States House of Representatives. Talk to Steve Laffey about it. He'll tell you how it works. Now, our center is going to be pushing this, not just here on this show, but on our social media. You'll probably be getting emails if you're on our email list from it. If not, make sure you hit the subscribe button right here on this page, or fill out that subscribe box when it pops up. We've set up, as we showed you, our rifreedom.org/crossover informational page with instructions. And we've committed now to buy 18 half-page ads in the Providence Journal to let voters know. Now, even if you're not eligible to vote in Congressional District 1, you know somebody who does, family member, a friend, a colleague. Tell them about it. Spread the word. Folks, this is something we can do. It's a few thousand votes will swing this election. Use your social media, use your email, send them to our webpage that we just, /crossover at rifreedom.org, and spread the word. You can help do this. We'll probably be having some interviews on this very show coming up over the month of July and August. And we'll be taking opinion pieces and conducting stories on it. This is a major campaign we're starting right now. We've committed, like I said, we've committed by 18 half-page ads with the Providence Journal. We're spending a pretty penny because we really do believe we can be effective in this campaign to send a moderate, someone who represents our values. Now, speaking of values, that's the secondary. The primary goal of this campaign is for the crossover voting. Conservatives, moderates who would normally vote in a Democratic primary. But the secondary purpose of this is to raise awareness about issues that candidates and the media just don't seem to want to talk about. And that's the cultural issues. We are involved in a cultural war. You know it. It's been the focus, the biggest focus of our show. It's the biggest hot button issue of our time. The Marxist and the cultural revolution that's infecting and spreading throughout our society, the same countercultural values that go against what you and I believe, that they're trying to indoctrinate our kids with and our young students, whether it's in elementary school, secondary school, or even higher education. It's everywhere, and it's got to stop. And we need to send somebody to Congress who's not going to further advance these anti-American, immoral, anti-cultural values. So if you're on social media and any way you're interacting with the media or interacting with a candidate, you should be asking, as we put forth in our press release, you should be asking them important questions. You want to know which one's the moderate candidate and which one's the progressive woke, Marxist? Just ask, any one of these questions. Should men be allowed to compete in women's sports? Should students be secretly coerced by school officials to undergo permanently debilitating and controversial gender transitioning therapies? Should sexually explicit materials, anti-American teachings, divisive critical race theories be pushed upon our students as part of their curricula, which is being done right now? Should that continue to happen? Should parents have full rights to direct the health and education of their minor children? Or do we want schools and the government to start making these very personal and deep family decisions? We and it's in addition to the tax and budget and the climate change and the high energy costs that a progressive radical leftist, if they go to Congress, will support. Not only these cultural issues, but your pocketbook issues are at stake. So again, we'll have a lot more on this in the coming days and weeks and months, but our center's campaign has been launched. We ask you to help us spread the word on it. Again, here's our media release, which will be linked to on rifreedom.org. Here is our crossover voting page, rifreedom.org/crossover. And it includes this step-by-step guide on how you can check and or change your voter status to ensure that you're eligible to vote in the September 5th Democratic primary. But remember, you got to do that by August 6th. You got to make sure you're eligible and you do whatever you have to do by August 6th. All right, so much more on this coming up. We'll talk about it almost every show. This is a major campaign we've launched. And again, we'll ask you to tune in.